right. So anything from that or the contemplations from last time, which were giving and receiving obligations, etc. Or just to check in. Where are we?
I can share. I was writing my notes because that was awesome. I always love when something resonates really deeply with you. um, that was very visual for me. The chakra meditation, and when we started at the root and the base and the groundedness, I had these images of a cave, and it was this beautiful cave with this water flowing and these crystals, and it was very peaceful and very strong and very supported. And then as we came up to the next one, it was even more crystals, and it was very purples and pinks, and it was just, when you sort of brought in that childlike quality, it was just very fun, as if you were in a real life Willy Wonka kind of, place. And then as we came above ground, it was really interesting. So then I came above ground. So as we came to the third chakra, it was that idea of the sprout, and how sprouts are these seeds that are coming through the ground, and they're full of all this potential and power. And there was this, the sun radiating through me, and sort of, being right above that, the earth there. And so it was just really beautiful, and a lot of visual. And I think maybe also just sharing a little bit of where I am, and the sort of the journey I've been on in the last few years, and being in this really much more connected with myself place, and much more supported place. And so thank you, as always, Jean, for a beautiful morning inspiration.
Wow, Lisa, I want to be there too. That sounds like such a magical place. As you were talking about the visualization you had, I was just also thinking it's so great, and like such a reflection or indication of like when maybe where I'm just trying to imagine, where you are in your journey. I'm not in your shoes, of course, but the fact that you're able to, conjure up that image as a representation of, who you are and where you're at. I think that's so cool. And I'm like right there with you, or I want to be.
Yeah, I think that was a beautiful meditation, actually. So yeah, definitely want to be there. What Alicia was describing, actually. But yeah, it was really great. And yeah, I think I was thinking like before the meditation, I was actually like in revising what we were doing before the last 2 weeks. I guess we were thinking about the willingness, and so it looks like this one was to add, fire to the willingness, and so, that's what I thought. So maybe I'll, stop. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, but last week I had a good time doing the contemplations, and So kind of similar to what we did the week before, extension of that. So I did multiple times, and so it was great actually to do. So surprising that I mean, once like the first time I did, it was like if you have the scale like positive, middle, and that, right? So when I did multiple times, I was all over the place actually. So depends on the perspective where you are, but it's good to see um, like the pairs of opposites. It could be anywhere, right? So like be willing to, so like taking the willingness to make it work for you. So I thought it got better in the sense that you're more allowing, and the meditation itself was helping us gain, like it was like more growth, like empowering, right? So so that's what I thought. So you could use it. I guess it's different for each one because you're going through different things in our lives, but it's like you could use that as a motivator, empower for whatever you're working towards, right? I think that willingness to work towards it. So it's definitely a builder, confidence builder. That's what I think.
Thanks. Welcome, Tori. We just did a meditation and it was, people liked it, I guess. I enjoyed it. And it was really, for me, the idea of, it started with the foundation and checking in with what the foundation is, and then moving up to the second chakra and kind of what's some stuff in there. And then the idea of bringing the fire of resolve and commitment, and bring that fire of whatever you want more of in your life, and to strengthen and empower that. So hopefully a fire to inspire, a fire to support, a fire to build that resolve inside, and that sense of like presence and ability to keep moving through whatever it is, or to amplify something that is really working, and you just want to have more of it. So go back and check out that meditation. I think you'll enjoy it. And Alicia, what you talked about your visuals with how the meditation landed on you, and that lovely grotto and cave, and it wasn't really a grotto, it was a cave, but was specifically a cave. I just need to speak about that because I don't know, I studied with Panaji in the Himalayan Institute, and my first trip when I first got initiated with Panaji, and then I went really with months after my interaction with him, I went to this huge trip to India with him in the Institute, and it was my first trip was to Kamakhya, which is the seat of where the left hand of Tantra is practiced. It's in way northern India, and it's still quite remote, and at least it was, I don't know, 15 years ago or whatever I went. And the thing about, and this is where the seat of the 10 Mahavidyas are, and it's a huge temple, live animal sacrifice is still done there. It's really potent in its own way, and to me, it's a place where my heart really is just like, wow. I didn't even want to go to India, and then the bell went off, and I said, well, I guess I'm going to India. And a month later, I was in India. It was just like that. And the seat of that temple is a cave underground with water and a stream that runs through it, and there's stairs. And so it's interesting that you said you're having this waterfall and this stairs, and this, or not stairs, but this sort of cave and down, and then the emergence going up, and it really is physically not the way you described it exactly, but to me, I was there in Kamakhya, at that seat. And when you were talking about it, and I'm getting chills right now, and it's so interesting because the people from the Institute, Shelley's, Panaji's assistant, has been posting some pictures of Kamakhya on Facebook because she's over there right now, and it's like I've been going, oh, Kamakhya, I want to go back. And then here's this, so it's like, wow. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring that up and say that was pretty dang cool. And that just speaks to the connectedness that we all share, whether we're in India or we're here, we're in Kamakhya together, and we're all these places. So wherever each one of us is, there we all are. And so this just harkens to remind us of that. And that's our foundation. That is the web of our foundation. And how willing are we to acknowledge the support that we have in each other, in the world as it's presented, no matter whether our world looks like it's supportive or not. It is. It is, because we're here. We're being held, no matter what it looks like, no matter what our pictures. That's us. Those are our veils. That's our stuff. That is our unique stuff, the way we see the world. And that's just what we're here to discover, unlock, alter, change our perspectives, realize that we can change the lenses. Like you go to the eye doctor and they change those lenses, and we can change those lenses. We don't ever have to get rid of any lenses either. But to remember that at our essence, how connected we are. And that when we see someone having a really successful experience, if we're not having a successful experience, one of the things that we can go to is envy or jealousy, or, wondering why it's not happening to me. Why not me? But it is you. And when we can really have some sort of embodied or visceral or psychic experience or something where we really do know, not intellectually know, we start there because that's a way in oftentimes, but to really know that we are really, 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 their win is my win. Where you are, I am. Where I am, you are. And think about the power of that. We have our teachers and we have our beings that whatever we do with them. I can't even think of a word that I want to use because it puts a pedestal out there, and I don't mean that at all. What I'm talking about here is this, literally, we're on a flat structure. Literally, it's a foundational structure that we all share. And that when I look to someone that inspires me, I'm there too. The amount that I allow myself to be inspired, that's the amount of me that I'm recognizing in this other being. Because it's never, as the teaching goes, this is a Dennis one, it's never outside of yourself. So whatever you see, positive, negative, neutral, it's you. It's us. So thanks for that trip to Kamakhya for me, Alicia. At least that's where it was for me. And wherever and Vikram and Brandy, you were saying how you wanted to be there and how you were there as you were describing your experience with it, Alicia, and how we all wanted to, it was beautiful and to be there. And Tori, even though you logged on like after the shares, you didn't miss anything. That's what we have to remember. We're not missing anything. Yeah, maybe I wasn't there for that aspect of it, but at our fiber, in our fabric, whether we open ourselves up to acknowledging it or not, it's
The gene
Maybe
freeze.
the gene.
Yeah.
I think it's frozen. Yeah.
Okay. I just sent her a text.
Have you guys looked up Kamakhya before or been to Kamakhya? Oh, Alicia, you're muted.
No.
Yeah, I haven't
I was-
been there either. But I was seeing the pictures that Jean was describing. Shelley, I mean, she was on Facebook as well. But yeah, I've seen the photos recently, and yeah, looks like
You know how to spell it, Vikrant?
What's that?
You know how to spell it? Come on.
Oh, it's with a Kamakhya, I think. Kamak, yeah.
See if I can see it.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful.
Yeah, looks like, yeah. I was actually, I mean, not to Kamakhya, but 3 years back, we went to something called Khajuraho. So these are, I think, Khajuraho, Kamakhya, these are like different, but Jean was describing, right? Different Sri Vidyas for the shrines, basically. And yeah, beautiful. Supposed to have like, I mean, all these places have beautiful energy. Like, so they usually represent different, I mean, chakras. That's what I can say, but I don't know specifically. Kamakhya looks like in the ground. That's what she was describing. Right? Interesting. But and also recently, there's somebody's in India. They started a river cruise, longest river cruise or something. So that was actually going through Kamakhya. There's a river called Brahmaputra, big rivers, Ganga and Brahmaputra. So this river cruise actually goes through Ganga and then Bangladesh, and then again enters India. So that's Kamakhya. Right? So surprised it was going through. It's by the Brahmaputra actually river.
Jean said she's logging back on.
Yeah.
Sounds beautiful. Have either have either of you been to India then?
I have not been to India.
I haven't. I've been to Thailand and that has beautiful temples, but I haven't been to India.
Yeah, Thailand is good too.
Vikrant, are you from India?
I'm from India. I was born and raised in India,
Okay.
but I came very early. I mean, here. So, but I went back a couple of times. But yeah, I mean, my parents actually came here, right, 10 years back. So they were last 7 years they were with me. But even while they were there, actually I went with Jean twice to India. So
Wow.
the Khajuraho, and last year we went to Varanasi. So that was beautiful. Khajuraho, I mean, they started the Sri Sukta, right? I mean, that was the start of that. I think Kamakhya, the trying, I mean, I don't know it, let Jean speak, but I think they're trying to do something for the next iteration of Sri Sukta, I guess, in Kamakhya. And that's what I get, but I'm not sure.
Right. Okay.
Next 2024 or something. I don't know, but that's what the emails.
Did you grow up when you were younger? Did you grow up with yoga in your life, or is that something you came to later?
I knew yoga, but I mean, not that. So in India, I mean, at least when I was growing up, I think even now, I mean, last 10 years, probably the studios came up because of the Western thing. But the way in India, it was free, right? I mean, freely taught, actually, yoga was like, I think on TV, you just get it freely. Like, that's how it used to be, right? Like, I mean, and there's no concept of like yoga studio. Or, I mean, but whatever we see, we just learn, right? Like the TV, that's how I mean, when I was there. But yeah, not so much. I mean, I knew a few poses, but I wouldn't practice every day. Like sometimes, yeah. But I guess some people do. But I didn't think I wasn't brought up like that. Yeah,
I just find it so fascinating because you have this whole culture, right, of something that's very spiritual and very deep and very sort of this history. And it's sort of, there's a part of the world where, it's sort of a lot of it's centered there. But yet, if you're from
yeah,
that part of the world, it's not always, it's just kind of, oh, yeah, that's there, but it's not something you always interact with. I find it very fascinating, the history and the culture behind
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, like, the way I was brought up, I mean, like my mom is kind of spiritual, but my dad is like a non-believer. So basically, we were like neutral. So
Right.
it's still interesting for me. So like because we will know some certain things, but we know certain things. So yeah, it was interesting. But the perspective is like a neutral perspective. So that was interesting. So, but I do every time like I go to one of these trips, I think. Gene, I mean, it's a lot to learn, right? I think it's good to interesting. But the interesting thing is the energy, like Gene was describing. It it yeah, it is real. I mean, you feel that actually. So sorry, Gene, we missed. Yeah. Just talking about the. I mean, somebody asked about Kamakhya. I mean, it's like general talking.
Excellent, great. Well, I have no idea when I left you all. All of a sudden, it was all gone. I'm going like, okay. So I guess that was time for me to be quiet. So yay. The universe is controlling the narrative once again, as always, actually. So, yeah, where are we?
Well, when you were speaking, Jean, it brought up an interesting, I was thinking about when you were saying this idea of when somebody else is having this really good experience, it should be inspirational to others. Um, but it took me a long time to get to feeling inspired if somebody else is inspired, right? Because I think for a long time we compare ourselves and we judge ourselves and we want to know when something good is happening. And I think a lot about this, probably more in a work setting or a school setting, because it's very driven by competition. And so when you see somebody else, maybe somebody else got a promotion or somebody else is being recognized for something, and you are going, wait, why isn't that me, right? I've done this, right? And it's hard to not feel that jealousy. So it was just interesting. I think as you were talking about that, I think that's it's a very powerful current that you're working against, because it's hard to and I think for me, at least, when I think about this, until I was really feeling more secure and confident, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, that it was hard to feel joy and inspiration as other people were succeeding, because I think that I wasn't probably connected to do what I was doing, but many people aren't. So until I could feel really good in my own skin, it was hard to feel happy and inspired when others were doing well. So as you were talking, those were thoughts coming up.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I think if we're not, how we are in our own skin is the biggest lens that we carry, which is one reason why, um, when I first started teaching, I mean, I've been teaching for a long time, but for me, because the lens of my own skin was so thick for myself, I knew that I knew the power of that lens. And so, and I knew it wasn't until I could actually start to poke holes in that lens, I could see other ways of being than the lens of my thick skin, of that thick lens of my lack of self-worth and my, I didn't love myself very much and things like that. So, I couldn't see the world very often in a way that made me feel safe to celebrate the wins of others. And for if to talk about the topic that we were talking about today, and I did feel less than a lot because that was my lens. That was my how I perceived the world. And it wasn't until the only lens I could work on at that point, was my own, which is the only one we can work on anyway. But people would talk about, oh, share and be happy for someone. And I thought, how do people do that? How does that even happen? I mean, how are they just lying? Or what am I missing? Well, again, I'm not getting it. That I said would feed then my lens of I don't get it and I'm not enough and all that kind of stuff. Why is everybody else understanding it? Why is everybody else able to share and not feel bad or to feel like they're not giving up something or something like that. So because of working so much on my own lens, and when it became more translucent and not so opaque, that's one reason why I taught really that focus on self before I would even teach the idea of community, before I'd even teach the idea of, think about other people. And because just the way I was brought up and how my life began was all about, I could really only think about myself because I was so taught not to think about myself ever in my family. That was not what the deal was. So it wasn't until it wasn't until myself as a teacher, but also the students around me I would observe a bigger sense of self, a stronger sense of clarity and being comfortable in their own skin before I would even bring in the idea of community and the idea of bringing, now I can talk about things like jealousy because there is a foundation for many now to feel better in their own skin. So now we can look at these beasts of jealousy and things like that and see how that can play out. And I agree. It's really about how am I in my own skin and do I have the capacity in my own skin to allow myself to see, okay, why do I still feel jealous or competitive on that? And is it helping me? And one of the things that with jealousy that I think has been real powerful is to bring in, when jealousy comes in, to bring in courage. Because if I'm jealous of somebody else, what have I been too afraid to do that they're doing? So that's how I circle it back to myself. If I'm jealous of somebody and they're doing something, like they had courage to do something, I didn't. That's on me. Not make me less than, but then so what I'm asking for now is more courage and to look in my life and say, okay, what have I been afraid? How have I been afraid to put myself out there? What have I been afraid to put forth in the world? What risks haven't I taken? And now others are getting stuff and I'm jealous of them. And maybe it's because I need more courage to take more steps or to try more things or to put myself out there and maybe fail. But if I'm doing that and really making all those strides, then there is less jealousy. There is, because I know I'm doing everything I can do. And I'm putting myself out there. And that is also a way of really finding that sense of self and strengthening that relationship with self. Because and this is a whole success failure conversation, which we definitely can have in this circle. But there is that idea of success failure and what does success mean? Because if a person keeps putting themselves out over and over and over and over again and feels like they're failing, what is that, what, that's a whole other topic of uh of where we can go with, that's all, that's another tributary of this river. So anyway, yeah.
For me, at some point in the meditation, I was thinking about one of my coworkers who I used to work with more closely, but not so much currently. And she has a personality of, I think that makes her very successful in the corporate workplace. It's a personality of drive, of directness, and things are black and white, and maybe even like ruthlessness in some sense. I mean, I come across some of those people at work, and it's all interactions with her would always kind of put me on edge, because I have more clarity of how I would describe myself now, but I think what it was in hindsight is it's not authentic or natural for me to have those qualities. And so I was sort of sitting in juxtaposition to her and realizing that I didn't have those qualities that maybe I perceived would be the ones to make us successful in the workplace. And that was very uncomfortable for me, and it conjured up a lot of feelings. And maybe jealousness was one thing, maybe it was anxiety. How would I succeed in the workplace, especially when I'm next to people like her? And it almost made me feel, what's the word I want to use? A little bit ashamed. I don't know, ashamed of displaying or leaning more into my own attributes, which, I'm very collaborative, and I genuinely give people the benefit of the doubt, and, just soft, I guess you could label them like softer qualities in the workplace. And I was so hesitant and so resisting embodying those qualities, because of this perception that they wouldn't get me very far in the workplace. And the practice has helped a lot, and the sitting with self, and even grappling with like this definition of self for me. And it's gotten me pretty far, to a point now where not only do I feel like comfortable embodying those things that come naturally to me, but just even embracing it and seeing them as true strengths in the workplace. And it's embodying those things that are natural, a part of who I am, and then seeking out, whether it's at work or a community, like my tribe, like people who have those same attributes and value the same things that I do. And then just around this idea of jealousy as a theme, because I, maybe in the past in the workplace, I have felt what amounts to jealousy. And then I think it came from a place of fear, like just also feeling like, oh, this person got a promotion or they got recognition and I didn't. And so maybe that means I'm not cut out for this. But in reality, if I really dug deeper, I was sort of like, well, is that even really what I want? Do I want to move up that ladder? Do I want that promotion or whatever that person is getting? But I was being conditioned to think that was like the metric or the yardstick that I needed to, be measuring myself against. And as I leaned into my qualities more, and as I figured out who I really was and what I really wanted, I've been more comfortable with letting go of that's not the yardstick that I want to measure myself against. And I don't know what that thing is what that thing I truly, truly want is, and still looking for it. But I feel like I just went on this 5-minute talk. So just all the thoughts that were swirling in my head as everybody was talking and during meditation.
I definitely have like a lot of those thoughts. And I think that's a great place to be, is to like recognize everything that's happening. I think for me, I go to a place of lack of resources or lack of abundance. And then I get fear from that, being like, oh my gosh, there's only one position, or there's only one thing, and there's never going to be enough. And then that places a lot of fear in my head of there's never enough, and I'm never going to be enough to have enough, kind of a roller coaster of emotions that I go through sometimes. But I think I definitely have like a lot of, Brandy, what you go through of I am so collaborative, and out here, especially working with people, there's so many people that work from a place of fear that they will do something to spite you because they don't know or don't have the education, and then they'll do something and try to start some sort of like controversy of, oh, like we work at the chamber and we're not going to work with economic development because only we do travel. And it's like, I'll go to their meetings anyways, and everybody's always invited to my meetings, because as soon as I stop inviting people, then I start acting like the people that I don't want to be like. And it's mind-blowing to me working from a place of collaboration when people don't want to be collaborative. But I remind myself a lot that it comes from a place of fear, and that's okay, and that's the journey that other people have to go on. But I also, confrontation has been a really big one for me, and like having employees of, okay, I have to be a boss and I have to come out and say things to people, and it's like, well, is that really going to come across? Is that really going to stick in their head? Like, is that going to be something that's really going to be poignant for them? Or is that something that it doesn't have to be a scary confrontational moment that's like, I'm a boss. It's like a moment that's like, hey, this is how I would do something, and then kind of keep repeating it. And then if it's something that I need to be confrontational about later on, I can. But I feel like helping people find their own journey and not worrying about what expectations are supposed to be like as a boss, or what expectations are supposed to be like in certain situations, and finding those like soft skills are really strong skills, because a lot of people don't really use their soft skills anymore.
I mean, Brandy, you and I have chatted about this, and we'll chat more, but having just reflecting on my own experience, I do think that, when you're talking about work cultures, there's some things where I think for a long time I thought I wanted all those things, and I probably, my pitta in me was maybe too dominant at times, and I was too direct, and I wasn't as inspirational as I should have been, and I was very good at navigating all the politicalness of certain corporations. But I think that it wasn't really who I was. And so I do think that, not that we all have the ability to change our job or go into something else, but having gone from one world where the values of that company were not aligned with my own values, that no matter how much I tried to be who I really was, it was never going to be. I was always going to be coming up against that friction and that tension. And I sit now in a new role in a company or an organization that values are aligned with my values. And so I'm not necessarily different how I'm showing up to do the same job, but the environment and the people around me are so different that it's just this really beautiful flow, because the things that I would have done before would have been, met with different reactions. And now it's like, that's amazing. And we're so happy you're thinking about this. And so yes, I've changed, but I didn't change. and I had to change what was around me. And I say that, and I know that's not always easy. There's, financial considerations and just other, you can't always just change a job. But for me, it was that it wasn't working. It wasn't working, no matter how hard I tried. And it was, I think I mentally kept thinking if I kept doing all these things, I would get there. But in the end, it was the universe kept slapping me on the head saying like, no, this isn't for you. And you didn't, right. And sometimes those things, it's when we're not getting those things, it was around like, maybe it's not me, right? Like maybe it's this isn't the right thing for me. And so I'm in a place now where I feel so much more aligned that when I show up, it feels so much more authentic. And when I share something, which could have been the same thing I've shared in many other places, it's met with such a different experience. And so it's like, I know that this is a much better place for me because I'm not having to deal with I'm not having to question myself. And so, I think sometimes that you also have to, and maybe that's part of the courage thing, right? And I need to change something for me, and it might look really different, and that's really scary.
Yeah, that really resonates, Alicia. I think fortunately I I feel I'm in a much more aligned place professionally now than I was even half a year ago. And the courage, the idea of courage is it presents itself for me when I think about what that next move is going to be. And in my gut, I know that next move is not something that it'll look drastically different than what I'm doing now. And for me, that's sort of the really scary idea of I've had these guardrails of what accomplishments should be, what the achievements should be. And I think literally recently I've gotten to the point where I realize that this environment is not where I want to be long term. But I think the real test of courage will kick in once I take tangible steps to create this different world for myself. But yes, thank you for sharing that.
And whatever those steps are, they're still steps. It doesn't have to be the big rip, start over. It might be in some cases. But the steps could take a while. And to know, it's like, to know that everything that we're doing, every little change that we're making is every little change that we're making is a step towards the bigger picture of whatever it is we think we want to be changing. And it can be as simple as changing our eating habits or changing our point of view or it can be little things that don't seem like they're related to the task at hand. I think this is one thing we talked about at the beginning, this whole fabric, this web. To know that we don't have to hit it head on and say, okay, let's say it's a professional change. Maybe there are professional changes to be made. But but if it seems like, okay, now I don't think I'm going to be like Brandon, I'm just going to use your word since you were the last to speak, but I don't think you're alone in this conversation. I think there's others in the room. That if what I'm doing professionally now is very different than what I see myself doing. And we can take steps professionally to move that change, to think that we're moving that change along, we can also take other steps that don't look like professional steps that are still moving that change along. They don't have to on the nose directly relate to that. So just know that wherever we're making a change, we're creating space for something new. That's that second chakra. We're creating space for a newness, which then permeates through our entire fabric. And sometimes, if we look back, and this would be an individual reflection, and maybe this will be one of the contemplation questions, is to look and see times, because we've all made changes in our lives. We've all made decisions and changed something, whether our relationships or our jobs, or we moved, or something changed. And to look back on that big moment of change, and what were the steps that led up to that change? Might be some obvious ones, like I quit my job and I got another job. But before that even happened, what were there other steps? Were there other changes that were taking place behind the scenes that led up to that quitting of the job and moving into another place that made that possible? So it'll kind of look at our supporting cast of characters here. That's why that's one reason why things like 40-day like practices, like doing like a designated 40-day practice, or things like going on a diet, or all these little things that we do at the beginning of the year, which we could do all year long. We don't have to just only do them in January. But what they do is they change our routine, they change our momentum. That's the power of the thing, is that it changes the momentum to make space for another way. And so we're putting a chink in that fabric of that thick lens that we're used to, and that provides a pathway for more change. So if moving or getting another job or something else seems like really, really big, pick something else that is doable, and start changing the things that are doable. Movement by movement by movement. Because there's going to be something that's doable. Pick that, start there. And then move to the next thing that's doable. And in this way, we're building a foundation for moving a bigger piece. Yeah. Goes back to show business, kind of, there's no overnight success. It looks like the person became an overnight success overnight, but what they did up to that moment, there's not an overnight success. It was years of practicing. It was years of songwriting. It was years of risking, putting it out there. It was years and years and years and years and years and years and hours and hours and hours of lots of stuff before overnight success happened. Anybody have anything else? I know my intention today was to check in to see time-wise whether we wanted to, I want to honor, I leave the 75 minutes, but I don't know I just want to honor our time. I don't want to run over if people feel like they just want to do the hour. And I meant to check in on time at the beginning, but I forgot. So mental note for next time. Let's try to do a check-in on time, whether people have designated the hour or whether the 75 feels okay that day. So I'm good with either. I just want to be honoring of your time as well. So I don't know where we are on time, but we're splitting the difference right now. So please weigh in and let me know, because we can wrap up or we have a little more time, whatever you want to do.
I'm flexible, Jean. It does, either way works great for me.
So how are we feeling today? Do we want more time? Do we want to go a few more minutes, or are we rappy? Feeling rappy?
I mean, you all feel free to continue on. I think I'm gonna drop soon because unfortunately there was a mass shooting near where I am, so I'm a little bit distracted at the moment trying to figure out what's going on.
Where are you?
I'm in LA, and there was a shooting, I guess, this morning, about 20 minutes from where my parents live.
Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, that's something.
Yep, so gonna, luckily, you know, we're not out, we're at home, but I'm gonna check out some of the headlines and see where it was, because that is an area that they visit pretty often.
Okay, great. Well, we can wrap. I love you all. Anyway, that's it for now. Contemplation's coming. Love you all so much. See you in
Thank you, Jean.
a couple weeks. Mwah. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Alicia.